Hi there. So I'm downloading the new version of Nuke for Windows, which is version 13. But there's a big change that has tripped over a couple of friends of mine, and I wanted to show you how to avoid them. The big change comes about because we have moved from Python 2 to Python 3. This is not something specific to the Foundry. If you look at the VFXplatform.com, you have the VFX reference platform, which is created by the VES and a number of vendors. So the idea is these are standards that should be used by everyone making software for VFX, including internal scripts. As you can see, it's 2019. It was Python version 2. And you can see that Python 3 should have come in 2020. Now, it's been a bit slow to roll across. So Python 3 has come into Nuke version 13. What this will mean is that a lot of your custom scripts that you may have created will no longer work. So in Nuke here, I mean, who uses Nuke out of the box without changing it in any way? Nobody. That's who. So, in my one, I've added the scrtips plugin. That's really handy. I didn't make that, but, I've used a bit of script to add that. And that is Python. We will no longer need this in version 13 because it's actually part of Nuke. I've added these, which are made by 3D Equalizer team, SciDev. So they allow you to create the lens distortion nodes in line with 3D Equalizer rather than using Nuke standard ones. I've also created this custom menu which adds some little hotkeys. These are things like, for example, I've got a paste with inputs. So if I copy this and I make a postage stamp, and then I want to copy it, and then I do Alt V and it copies it with the input, which can obviously be quite handy. So if I made a checkerboard, I did this, and you can see that I could even hide the input here. I can copy it and I can paste it, and so that's quite handy from I mean, there are scripts like stamps and things that do this more effectively, but this is some basic stuff that I've set up. And you may have much more in-depth things. If you're running a studio, obviously you're going to have auto writes, all kinds of stuff. Now, if you've never done this, or if you just need a refresher of how it's done, there's in your user folder. I'm on Windows, so it's my name, danielmiller.nuke. There is this .nuke folder. Folders with a dot on them are usually hidden in most OSs. It's the same on a Mac. It's the same on Linux. It will just be your home folder .nuke. So in here there are these folders that Nuke creates by default: task presets, toolsets, workspaces. All the toolsets that you create go in there, and so on. When you save a workspace, they go in here, and that's just happening within the interface of Nuke. But you can also customize it using Python. So you can use these two files, the initpy, which runs before, as Nuke launches, before it runs a GUI, and it runs whether or not you run the GUI. So in this case, I've just used this to import Nuke. That's going to add these paths: Python, gizmos, icons, plugins, which are these folders here, just so I could keep that .nuke folder nice and tidy and not have loads of files floating around. And I've imported the scrtips utilities here. So that's also useful because we want to run those, even if we're not running the GUI. Now, we also have the menu py, which runs when you run the GUI. So it's a bit like having a .GUI expression on it before it runs it. And so a lot of these are things about defaults for when you make a node. So, the exposure node, I want it to be in stops because, why wouldn't you? Because stops are what cameras use and it makes more sense. And so on, those preferences. A few other little handy scripts, like something to set the B box to B with a hotkey and so on, and set read nodes to raw with a hotkey, and a few little things like that. Add to my little custom menu and some other bits and bobs. It's not really important what I'm doing there. I do talk about that on my blog. I have a written tutorial about pretty much all of that stuff, and it's all on my GitHub if you want to just take it, use it and tell me how much you love it or don't, or how much you want to change it. So what we want to do is make this work in the new version of Nuke, which may or may not happen. Let's find out.
Hold on to your butts.
initpy remember that first file that loaded, error interpreting this plugin, it's not working. So it doesn't know what to do. You know, the formatting is wrong because we've changed the version of Python. So how do we fix that? Well, let's show you. So the first thing I want to show you is that my actual Nuke installation of 13 does work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this folder, my home folder, and go up. Here we are. So there's this .nuke folder. Now what I want to do is just ignore that. I want to stop Nuke looking at that. So I'm going to rename it. I'm not going to delete it because I do want to keep it, but I'm just going to call it _. And here it is, Nuke 13. And let me prove it's Nuke 13. I'm going to make one of those fancy copycat nodes that they talk about. I don't know how to use it, but there it is. So, okay, so this is the default version of Nuke, and you can see we've got some new things. I don't know what they are yet. Hopefully I will become an expert shortly. There are also, I believe you can now make cryptomats. There you go, cryptomat just comes up. So in Nuke version 12, you had to add this and install it from GitHub, which is fairly easy to do, but it's not made by the Foundry. This is a proper Foundry version, and hopefully will be more better. Let's find out. So, but now I want to get some of my custom scripts back because I do like having my little keys. I mean, I want to be able to just, you know, do Shift B and have the B box turn to B instead of making a blur node that's off to the side. I don't like that. So I want, you know, to bring some of my little defaults across. So let's look at how we can do that. So I'm going to close this down. Now, before I do, I just want to say that there are some files that are going to be fine. The tool sets, you can just copy those across and they're all going to be fine. Some of them might break. What I would probably do is just bring them across, you know, one by one or a few at a time, and just have a look and see which ones are useful, which ones you need to update, which ones, you know, can be better, and so on and so forth. But for the most part, backwards compatibility in Nuke is pretty good. So those you can copy across into the new .nuke folder. Your presets, your workspaces potentially. I wouldn't bring I would make new workspaces with a new version of Nuke because it's a big, you know, they've changed. Who knows what they've changed? They've changed all sorts of things, and there might be better ways of doing things now. So I wouldn't copy everything across, but I would probably bring my favorite tool sets across. Plugins will almost certainly break, but the Python we are going to fix ourselves. Okay, so you can do it by hand. There are a few sort of basic changes to the syntax, but I'm going to use an automatic tool and just see these files one by one. So I'm using a text editor called Atom, which is free on all platforms, and the nice thing is it's exactly the same on a Mac, on Windows, and so on. And the cool thing about that is you can actually open a folder. So you can open an entire folder and it will give you all of the stuff. So my new .nuke folder, I'm going to select that folder, open it, and you can see all my things in here. So let's start with the initpy. So what we want to do is we want to add all of these plugins. Now this cryptomat utilities, we don't want it anymore. We don't need it anymore, so we're not going to bother doing that. We're just going to add this stuff. This was commented out in Nuke Survival Toolkit. I tried testing it and then I stopped using it. But let's move across. So what we're going to do is we're going to paste that in there. Then I have to prove that I'm not a robot. Chimneys, well, I don't know, that's chimney, that's chimney. Maybe I am a robot, I don't know. Okay, and then I translate. Okay, I'm going to select all and copy. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a new initpy file. This is the one thing I do actually really like about Windows that you don't have on the other OSs that I use. Even though, yeah, yes, I'm an adult, I know what I'm doing. So I'm going to open this initpy, and so I've got this new initpy, and I'm going to paste that text that I created. So now this won't error out, except these folders don't actually exist in here. So, you know, in the actual thing, let's make, what are they? So let's make a Python folder. Python, and remember it was unit py that fell over the last time when I ran Nuke. So let's just see what happens. So we need gizmos and icons. Okay, so these are my new folders. Add those and plugins. Now, I don't have any plugins, but it's handy to have a folder to put them in if I get any. It's like having somewhere to put my new toys. Okay, so in the case of the unit py, nothing has actually changed in this format. There aren't actually that many lines, that many commands that have changed. There are a few default behaviors that have changed. The line that was causing Nuke to bug out was actually one that I've deleted anyway because it was about loading the cryptomats. So for the minute, I'm just going to delete that. And now this is the code from another file, my menu py file. Now, this is also loading up a bunch of other modules that are Python modules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment those all out until I've also converted all of them Python 3. But just as a proof of concept, I'm going to get the menu py itself to work and all my defaults, my main defaults. So prove that I'm not a robot once again. Parking meters. I possibly am a robot. Okay, let's try that. Traffic lights. Okay, no. Okay, right. Okay. And I now have Python 3 code, which is great. Now, we will need to change this a little bit because there are a few things that are no longer needed. There are a few things that are never going to work. And so there's going to be a bit of, faffing about. So what I'm going to do is back in this folder, my new.nuke folder, new.nuke, I'm going to make a new text document, which is going to be called menu.py. Delete the extension, it will say yes. And, as we know, we are all responsible adults. Well, I am anyway. Well, maybe I'm an adult anyway. So, okay, so let's have a look. So import Nuke, we need to do that. Now this, from split layers, import that. Well, I'm not going to import that for the minute. I will once I've converted that to Python 3. These are knob defaults I want to use. Knob default, I want to use the default on the denoise. Well, yeah, go on. I'm going to leave all of these. These little functions are handy, so I'm going to keep those. Toggle hide, time alt cam, I'm going to keep that. And all my little tools and then my little menu, that's all great. Import toggle merge, well, not yet. Import render current, not yet. So, now cryptomats, no, we don't want those. They're part of Nuke. These 3D plugins, these are plugins, and plugins never update when you change versions of Nuke. You need the vendor to upgrade them. So until that happens, we'll just delete that. We'll leave that, and we don't need them telling us about copyright, something that we're not even using. So I'm going to save that. And then I'm going to run Nuke again. Okay, so here's Nuke 13 and it's working. And look, I've got my own little menu. So these little functions are all alive. So, if I make a merge, we can change the bbox to B. There are a few things that I used custom scripts for that are just now part of Nuke. Obviously, here's something exciting. Go to frame 53 and make a frame hold. And that's at frame 53 and not frame 1. Everyone that works in facility knows that that's what happens. Anyone that's installed Nuke on their own machine will know that that's not what happens, and you have to do that with a custom script. You no longer need to, so of course I won't be updating that bit of the script. Now I'm going to faff about with the automatic thing and update the rest of the thing. I'm not going to do that on the tutorial. I'm sure you can do that. Feel free to ask me questions on my blog, or message me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. Just don't be mean. Don't send me unsolicited pictures. Other than that, everything's good, and yeah.